What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, I'm going to go through some final thoughts ahead of the double game week 36 deadline. So we're going to talk about the European lineups from last night for Palace, Villa and Forest, then get into some team news, then answer some of your questions, benching headaches, and quickly go through my own team as well. So let's get into it. So let's start with Crystal Palace, who have a double game week in 36. They played their second leg of the Europa Conference League semi-final last night, and they won 2-1. They're through to the final, so I would expect quite a bit of rotation in game week 38 specifically because the final is midweek afterwards. So if the title race is still open, pretty good time for Arsenal to be playing Crystal Palace. In terms of the lineup, it was pretty much full strength, as you'd expect. So Richards, Lacroix, Canvo in defence, Henderson in goal, Munoz and Mitchell wing-backs, Kamada and Wharton in midfield, then Sarr, Mateta, Pino front three. Mateta played 66 minutes, and that's when Strand Larsen came on. Munoz did get sub, but it was right towards the end of the game, and Sarr played the full match. Now, what does this mean for game week 36? I suspect there's going to be some rotation for Everton. We haven't, at the time of recording, had a press conference on Friday, but Glasner spoke after the game. He's given them Friday off. Maybe some of them are going to go out celebrating, I don't know, but they've got Friday off. He said in the first leg, they trained the day afterwards and then didn't play well against Bournemouth. So he didn't, I guess, feel a need to have them training straight away on Friday. And he said they'll make decisions on Saturday. I would be shocked. Maybe shocked is a bit strong, but I just don't think Sarr and Mateta are starting against Everton. I do think it's quite difficult to guess the minutes on the remaining four matches they have, because my initial instinct is they'll rest players against Everton because it's a few days after the European match. But then if they play the full strength against Man City, does that mean they bench those players for Brentford in game week 37? Because that's another quick turnaround. But that means they won't want to play them in 38 either. But then that's quite a big gap between games. Does that make sense? So if you bench certain players against Everton, they probably play against City, but that's a midweek fixture. And then Brentford is on in game week 37 on the weekend. So I think what's going to happen is probably protection of minutes. Basically they'll protect the minutes rather than just keep constantly benching. They're not just going to bench players the whole way through, right? There's rhythm and match fitness to think about. I think even if they start, they could just play 60 minutes like we see Mateta be doing quite a lot. So if you've got Mateta or if you've got Sarr, then by all means keep them and hope that they do start against Everton or they come off the bench, they do something, then they start against City. But I just don't think I would be buying them. Like, the Everton game's the better fixture, right? The City game is a bonus. So if you only get a start in the City game, that's just not great. And then you're unsure what they're going to be like in 37, 38. So I think Sarr and Mateta for me are probably avoids. If you want to take a punt, like a genuine punt for game week 36, it's Brennan Johnson and Strand Larsen, I think. Because they'll probably start against Everton and then come off the bench in the Man City game. They're probably useless to you after 36, so it's only for someone that really wants a punt and has lots of transfers, but that's what I would be looking at, because I think they will start against Everton. The defenders I'd be a little bit more sure about for the minutes. I think Lacroix will start against Everton. I think Munoz probably will as well. Richards obviously got a rest last week, so he could start too. I'd be tempted to go for them. And Henderson if you've got the spare transfers. It's worth saying Glasner did say they won't wave the white flag for the Everton game and that he wants to get the win to make sure they're safe from relegation. Now, we all know Crystal Palace are not going to get relegated this season, but it's not mathematically done yet. So Glasner did mention he wants to get the win. So I don't see a fully rotated side against Everton, but I think we will see quite a bit of rotation, especially in attack. So I think it's the same as before. The defenders is where I'll be looking. Lacroix first, then Munoz, then Richards or Canvo for me, and Henderson in goal is probably quite good. So Aston Villa are also through to a European final, this time the Europa League. Congratulations to them. And of course, congratulations to Crystal Palace as well, which I think I forgot to mention earlier on. Villa beat Forest 4-0. I think from an FPL point of view, the two players people are thinking about are Watkins and Rodgers. They've got Burnley away this week. Great fixture on paper. Watkins was benched against Spurs recently, so there is some concern there. Now, in terms of the minutes last night, Rodgers didn't play the full match, but he only got subbed right towards the end of the game. And Watkins played the full match. So I think Rodgers, no real concern, right? If you've got him in your team, just play him against Burnley. The guy always starts. With Watkins, There has to be some concern because he played the full match, was benched recently, but I think he will start. And the reason for that is Aston Villa are not mathematically in the Champions League next year. It's still possible for them to not get into it because they could lose the Europa League final, even though they'll be favourites, and they could still drop out of the top 5. So, and with Liverpool at home in 37, City away in 38, I just don't think they can take any risks. So I think they will go pretty much full strength against Burnley, and then the minutes will start to be managed for Liverpool and City. As always, I cannot be 100% certain about that, especially when Watkins recently got benched, but that's my read on it. I think Rodgers will definitely start, and I'm pretty confident Watkins will too. Obviously, if they're 2-3-0 up or something like that, Watkins may well get subbed early. But I think if you've already got him in your team, that's the risk worth taking. It's a risk worth taking. I probably wouldn't buy either of them. If you've got lots of transfers and you really want to go for them for Burnley away to get rid of them again, fair enough. But in that case, I'd probably rather take a punt on a Palace player or start getting my Arsenal players in earlier. So we've got to talk about the other team in that semi-final against Aston Villa, and that was Nottingham Forest. They obviously lost that game 4-0. Commiserations to them. They don't really have a huge amount to play for now. They're not mathematically safe in the Premier League, a bit like with Crystal Palace, but it's pretty much done. I don't think West Ham are going to get enough points to go past Nottingham Forest. And Forest's fixtures are okay last 3. They obviously rotated their team last week against Chelsea and did really well. So they'll get enough points from Newcastle at home, Man United away, Bournemouth at home. The big talking point really for Forest and FPL is Morgan Gibbs-White, because a lot of people have brought him in recently. He was on the bench last night, but it's a weird situation where Vitor Pereira basically said he had no chance of playing. I think it was the same for Ndiaye as well. And he doesn't know if he's going to be available for the Newcastle game. Now, at the time of recording, there hasn't been a press conference on Friday, so there may well be an update later today. But right now, I would say that Gibbs-White is a pretty big risk for Game Week 36. And for most people, if you were planning on playing him and you don't have a good bench option, I'd probably be looking to sell. And I just think in general, once relegation is off the table completely for Forest, which probably won't be that long, you're not sure what the minutes are going to be like anyway. Even without Europe to worry about, I still think you could see a reduction of minutes, especially if there's any risk there. And obviously he was on the bench last night, no chance of playing. Now there's a risk for 36. You're not going to know if he's definitely going to be back for 37 either. So I think with Gibbs-White, for most people, I would probably look to sell. And I'm not sure there's many Forest players I'd be looking to invest in. The fixtures are not bad. You could take a punt on Chris Wood or Igor Jesus if you wanted to. But I think there's plenty of teams with stuff to play for that I'd be looking to target instead. So let's get in some of the team news. For Spurs, De Zerbi said that Vicario isn't ready yet. I'm not sure if he's going to be back before the end of the season, but that obviously means that Kinski is going to continue in goal. If you happen to need a new goalkeeper for 1 or 2 weeks, he is quite cheap, but I suspect that most people are going to concentrate their transfers elsewhere. On Solanke, which has a bit of a knock-on effect to those that want to take a punt on Richarlison. He said he should be back for Game Week 37 for the Chelsea game, not completely ruled out of Game Week 36. So if he's fit enough to play, he may well just come into the team for 37 and 38. For what it's worth, if Richarlison keeps doing well, he may keep that place, but it obviously puts doubts on it. So I still don't hate it as a bit of a punt, but I don't think you can guarantee the minutes for 37 and 38 in particular. And he said that James Maddison is a maybe. I don't think anyone's going to be looking at him. He's been out for so long. He's maybe one for next season instead. On Brighton, Gomez and Weaver are both doubts for Game Week 36, just in case any of you are holding those 2 players. For Man City, Rodri's still a doubt. So that obviously, like, no one's looking at bringing in Rodri from an FPL point of view, but it does help the team if he's there. So who knows? Brentford may get enough chances in that game to take points off Man City, which then could have a big knock-on effect in terms of how long the title race is open, etc. But I would still expect Man City to win that game. And then probably the Crystal Palace game as well. Although if most of their big hitters come back in for that game, you never know. Either way, Man City players, good for the double. No one's selling the players they've got, apart from maybe Semenyo to Cherki. We'll talk about that later. For Newcastle, Livramento and Cher are likely to miss the rest of the season. For Chelsea, Sanchez is out for Game Week 36, so Jorgensen will play instead. That's probably due to the head injury that he got against Nottingham Forest last game week. Neto and Garnacho are unlikely to be available as well. Chelsea are really struggling for wingers at the moment. Obviously, Derry came in last week, got a head injury himself. He's now, I think, out for the season. So I'm not sure how they're going to play. It's obviously going to hurt Chelsea a little bit going forward, having all these players missing. Colwill and James have trained all week. They were back in the squad last week. Kluivert should be back for Bournemouth. I don't think that's going to have a massive impact on FPL. I guess it's one more attacker to add to the mix, so other players might get subbed early and stuff like that. But Kluivert's been out for a little while, so I don't think it's going to have a major impact. Ballard's out for the rest of the season after his red card. So for anyone that's got him, obviously you need to get rid. And then for Liverpool, Isak has returned to parts of team training. So maybe he's going to be in the squad for game week 36. If not, probably in it for 37 and 38. But I just don't think he's going to be an FPL option for the rest of the season unless something major changes. Salah and Alisson are still out. Don't know when they're going to be back, but obviously that puts Szoboszlai on penalties. Mamardashvili could train today, so he might feature. I doubt he's going to go back into the team this week, but maybe 37 onwards. If you've got Woodman, if you went there as a punt, he should start this week. And Kanate and Wirtz are fine. So for Arsenal, Marino and Timber are both still out. Mikel Arteta was asked if they'll play again this season. He said, I don't know. There is still a fair bit to do. Everything has to be smooth and quick if they want to play any minutes. And he also said that the injury for Timber is more complicated than they first thought, and they didn't expect it to take this long for him to come back. So I think if you want to take a punt on an Arsenal defender that's not like a Saliba type who's safe for minutes, it's Ben White. Because at the moment, he seems to have the right back shirt. I know Mosquera can play there as well, and there is obviously some risk. But I think if Timber's out, Ben White's going to start against West Ham. Then he's going to start against Burnley as well. He's got a nice understanding with Saka. And with Timber, like no confirmation he'll even be back before the end of the season, the minutes should be good for Ben White for the next couple. Obviously, there's some risk there. Timber could be back for game week 38, and the title race could be over. There could be rotation. Mosquera might come in. But if you're looking for a genuine punt, Arsenal defender, Ben White is probably the one. For Fulham, Semenyo and Iwobi are both out. Everyone else is available. For Man United, we've not had any updates on Šeško yet. So he went off at half-time in the last match. That has an impact on the minutes of Cunha, Mbeumo, etc. If you're a Šeško owner, I think on current info, unless we get anything else, you've probably got to release bench him, maybe even look to potentially sell him. Martinez is available again. He's back from suspension. And we've not had anything on Cunha. So there were reports during the week, apparently from ESPN Brazil, that an agreement had been reached with Man United that Cunha would be rested for the World Cup. Personally, I think it's absolute nonsense. I just don't see Man United agreeing to do that 3 game weeks out, even if Champions League is wrapped up. I mean, maybe that are under the table, agreements that teams and national teams have sometimes. Absolutely. I'm just not convinced that's a thing. Especially when there's been journalists from Man United come out and said that it's basically nonsense. So if you're a Cunha owner, I suspect he'll start this week. Could be wrong, but that would be my guess. And West Ham have got a fully fit squad. So those of you with maybe a Somerville punt or Bowen, you're looking pretty good right now, apart from the fact they're playing Arsenal. So let's go through some benching headaches for game week 36. I've got Palmer right at the top of the list in terms of players I would definitely start. Maybe if it was Palmer versus a Palace defender, I would choose the Palace defender for the double game week. But when I've seen most people considering benching Palmer, the player that he's up against, there's no way I would start him. So I think if you're keeping Palmer this week, he should definitely be in your 11. The minutes should be good. He's probably still on penalties. And I think there's maybe been a little bit of an overreaction to the Forest game. I mean, I'm selling him, right? So I'm part of that overreaction. He wasn't great. He didn't play great. Didn't have a huge amount of chances. But if I had him in my team still, and I wasn't selling him, there's no way he'd be on the bench. Then I've got Calvert-Lewin against Spurs away, then Thiago against City away. Basically, both players that should start good minutes, good goal threat, and they're on penalties. I'm taking the easier fixture, even though Spurs have been slightly improved under De Zerbi. Then Tavernier against Fulham away, then João Pedro against Liverpool away. That is a close call, but my gut feeling is to play the player with the better fixture. I know I've got Palmer right at the top of the list, so maybe there's a little bit of contradiction there, but I'm taking the midfielder status and the penalties over João Pedro. I know I'm talking about penalties for Palmer, by the way. Tavernier is obviously behind Krupi. We've seen that now. But I still just about prefer it. I don't hate it if you want to play João Pedro, by the way. His goal threat's been pretty decent for Chelsea this year. But I'm going to stick to my gut and just play Tavernier over him. Dewsbury Hall, I've got below João Pedro. I don't completely hate putting Dewsbury Hall further up the list. Like, Everton will go full strength. They've got plenty to play for in terms of Europe. Palace, I'm pretty sure, will rotate. I don't hate that, but I think if there was nothing Like if Crystal Palace rotation wasn't a thing, there's no way I would put Dewsbury all ahead of those other attackers. And I don't know if it swings the needle enough to play him. But I don't hate it if you want to instead. Then the defenders, Saliba, West Ham away, Chow, Forest away, Hill, Fulham away. Then I've got Anthony Gordon right at the bottom. Now, I'm not sure if Gordon's going to start. That's the problem for me for Newcastle. He was in the squad last week, got 0 minutes off the bench. They won that game 3-1. There's obviously a chance Gordon comes back in, but there's so much speculation about where he's going to move to in the summer. Like Bayern Munich is a name that constantly gets mentioned. I'm just not convinced he's going to start. And that's why I've put him right at the bottom. If you're looking at that saying, what are you on about? Gordon's definitely going to start. Then I would definitely have him ahead of... Now, if you think Gordon's going to start, I would have him, arguably top of the list. Because he's definitely on penalties as well. And that's a pretty good fixture. Especially with what's just happened in Europe with Forest. The players they're missing as well. So that's how different it becomes. If Gordon's starting, he's at the top of the list. Maybe below Palmer. Maybe. But either way, high up. I think he's going to get benched, and therefore I put him right at the bottom. Chow versus Hill is really close because Hill is so good for DEFCONs. But I just fancy Newcastle a little bit more against Forest than I do Bournemouth versus Fulham, even though both teams will probably win. And then Saliba, obviously, just Arsenal defender. So let's get into some of your questions. Is it worth going Semenyo to Cherki and triple captaining Cherki, or just stick with Semenyo and triple captain Haaland? Now, there's a couple of different things going on here. First thing to say, if you think Cherki is the best triple captain this week, you should definitely buy him. You should definitely do the Semenyo to Cherki move. I would also say Semenyo to Cherki is a reasonable move in its own right. You don't have to justify making that transfer because of triple captain. You can do Semenyo to Cherki and still triple captain Haaland. That's also perfectly reasonable. Right now, Cherki is the better option than Semenyo, I think. His goal threat's a little bit less, but not by a huge amount. And his creativity is off the charts. And also his minutes look a little bit better as well, and he's cheaper, so that might enable other moves for you. So I think Semenyo to Cherki is reasonable, and if I was wildcarding right now, I would definitely have Cherki. I don't think it's a essential move, though. Keeping Semenyo is fine. Now, I've got 2 free transfers, and right now, and I might change my mind, but right now I'm leaning towards keeping Semenyo and hoping that that transfer will be better used elsewhere. Part of my reasoning, by the way, is they've got 2 games in quick succession. So they played Brentford at the weekend, then midweek they got Palace. And I just think that Semenyo has been a bit of a machine for minutes. Now, for what it's worth, especially with the title on the line, I suspect Cherki will start both of those games as well. But I don't think it would be a complete shock if Semenyo plays more minutes. If I had 4 or 5 transfers, maybe my assessment of that would be a bit different. I would just go for Cherki because I think he's the better option. But I think it's justifiable to hold on to Semenyo. As to whether you should triple captain Cherki over Haaland, if you're chasing, like in a mini league or overall rank, and you've got a big gap to close, I would definitely consider it. But on paper, Haaland, I think, is the best option. And I don't think there's really too much debate around that. Best goal threat, on penalties, great minutes, etc. I think Haaland is the best triple captain. But Cherki is reasonable if you want to take a punt because you're chasing or whatever. So just to summarise, Semenyo to Cherki is perfectly viable regardless of triple captain. If you think Cherki's the best triple captain this week, you should definitely buy him one way or the other. And I think sticking with Semenyo is fine, especially if you're limited on free transfers. So should we prioritise bringing in Arsenal or Crystal Palace players this week? Now, in some ways, this is fairly straightforward because Palace have got a double game week in 36 and Arsenal's best fixture is game week 37. So the priority is Palace players this week, Arsenal next week. But really, this is a question of free transfers. How many do you have spare to bring in a few punts on Crystal Palace to still be able to do what you want to do game week 37 onwards? I've got 2 free transfers and I'm struggling to justify getting a Crystal Palace player who may well get rotated in 36 and then is not great for 37 or 38 either. Because if I'm saying that, and again, I could be wrong on this, but if I'm saying the best minutes are in defence, then in game week 37, they got Brentford away. I don't expect a clean sheet. And then in 38, who knows against Arsenal? So for 2 free transfers, I'm not sure I want to bring in a Palace defender to then have to deal with them straight away afterwards. If you're sat there on 3, 4, 5, and you've already got, let's say, 2 Arsenal players in, then sure, go for some Crystal Palace, then get Arsenal in 37. Like, that is the fixture, right, that you want them for, really. Burnley at home. Arsenal are fully capable of beating West Ham away. I know West Ham are fighting for their lives. They've done okay recently under Nuno, but they could obviously win that game. But Burnley is the one. That's when you want to make sure you've got the correct players. So delaying the moves until next week is absolutely fine. And also, like, again, I know people always hate hearing this, but there's no right or wrong here. Like, if your team looks perfect for game weeks 36 and 37, it's probably going to be fine for 38 as well. And you've got 2 moves and you want to just get some Palace in, that's absolutely fine. If you've got more issues to deal with, maybe you want to limit the amount of punts that you take. And also, don't forget, by the time we get to game week 38, the title race might be over. Not guaranteed, but it's a possibility. And then if you're stuck there with 3 City, 2 or 3 Arsenal, you've got other problems to deal with because there could be some rotation. So, like, a lot of these questions are, how many free transfers do you have spare? But obviously, if we're talking you're going to buy Palace and Arsenal players anyway, then of course you go for Palace this week. I guess to try and think of a question someone might have, Palace defender this week or the free transfer to get Gyokeres next week, I'd probably favour getting Gyokeres. But again, that's not necessarily the right call. Like, if Lacroix starts both games in game week 36, who knows what you could get? Yeah, I think the less transfers you've got, the more you should probably focus on Arsenal. But you can still wait to game week 37 to do that. So I'm thinking of downgrading Palmer to fund a move for Gyokeres. Which midfielder should I bring in? Szoboszlai, Ndiaye or Dewsbury Hall? Just a quick one on Palmer. I know lots of people are moving him to Saka, and I probably will too. And obviously, if you want to get Gyokeres and you need money, it's fine to sell him. But don't look at him in your team as absolute must-sell. I think that's how some people are talking about Palmer, and I just don't think that's the case. His minutes will be pretty good against a Liverpool defence that's not watertight, and he's probably still on penalties as well. So he's okay this week if you don't want to move him on. Just wanted to say that. But anyway, back to the question, Szoboszlai, Ndiaye or Dewsbury Hall. I answered a question about Everton the other day. I prefer Ndiaye over Dewsbury Hall just about because of penalties. Like, underlying numbers are very similar. It's hard to split them. So the way I'm going to split them is Ndiaye has penalties and Dewsbury Hall doesn't. So that's my choice if money doesn't matter. Dewsbury Hall is $1 million cheaper though. Maybe that unlocks another move for you in 37 or 38. So just think about that. With Szoboszlai, I actually quite like him as a differential at the moment. I don't think he's super high owned. Playing Chelsea at home at the moment doesn't look that bad on paper. When they get to Villa away in game week 37, Villa could have nothing to play for. They may well have Champions League wrapped up at that point, and their focus is going to be on Europe. I'm not saying that Villa will necessarily massively rotate in that match, because match rhythm, fitness, etc. is still a thing, but it's a better fixture on paper than it would have looked a couple of months ago if Villa have got nothing to play for. And then Brentford at home last day is quite good too. And I think even though when you get to game week 38, Liverpool are going to have nothing to play for either, because it's a home game, I would expect Szoboszlai to probably play. I think sometimes whether you've got a home game in 37 or 38 plays a big part in minutes. Like, for example, this might be incorrect, but it's something I thought about the other day. With Casemiro, who some people are looking at, he's leaving Man United in the summer. That's going to happen. The final home game is in game week 37. And the game week 38 is away from home. And I think players that have played a lot of minutes, sometimes when there's nothing to play for and the final game is away from home, they don't play. We've seen that before. Now, to be fair, Man United have not had like European games and cup matches and stuff like that. So it's not like Casemiro is absolutely knackered. But I would not be surprised, and I know some people are thinking about bringing him in, if he plays 37 and he's not in the squad for 38. Whereas I think for Szoboszlai, even though Liverpool might not have much to play for, they've also not got Europe and stuff to contend with. I think he'll just play the whole way through. I think he'll play the Chelsea game for sure, play Villa, and then probably just play the final home game as well. And also, while Salah's out and Isak's struggling, he's definitely on penalties for me. So I quite like him. Him versus Ndiaye, I think that's tricky. Everton in particular will probably have something to play for right until the final game. Because now Villa are in the Europa League final, it's possible that 6th place in the Premier League gets Champions League. And obviously Everton are just going to want Europe anyway. So between Ndiaye and Szoboszlai, I'm going to say Ndiaye. I think playing Palace away this week is not that bad after Europe. Sunderland at home on paper is a better fixture than any that Liverpool have. And if they've got something to play for on the final day against Spurs, that's not a terrible fixture either, even though Spurs will probably have something to play for too. So I'm going to say Ndiaye, but I really like Szoboszlai. And a lot of people have asked me for punts for the final couple of weeks. I don't personally think there's a huge amount of options out there that are perfect. as in they got low ownership. The fixtures are great for the final 3 weeks. But I think Ndiaye and Szoboszlai are close to that because the fixtures are okay pretty much for 36, 37 and 38. So I'm going to go Ndiaye just about, but I do like Szoboszlai too. I think Harry Wilson, by the way, just quickly, I know he wasn't mentioned in this question, is also someone I would consider. I think a lot of people have been selling him recently, but Bournemouth at home, Wolves away, Newcastle at home is quite good. And Fulham are another of those teams where Europe is a consideration now. So I think they'll have something to play for the remaining weeks. You could also look at like Gross and Hinchelwood from Brighton. Their fixtures are good too. So Thiago has mixed fixtures. Do you think it's wise to move him on to someone like Welbeck as a punt for the last 3 games? Thiago is one of those players right now that I think is sellable, but he's in no way a must sell. I wouldn't be looking at him thinking, well, I've got to take a -4 to get rid of him because it's Man City away. Because if Rodri's missing from that game, obviously Man City will still be favourites and it'll be a difficult match for Brentford, but they might get the odd chance here or there. And if they do, it's probably falling to Thiago. His minutes are great and he's on penalties. So it wouldn't be the worst thing to have to keep him for City away, even if you have to play him, then to have him for Crystal Palace at home, which right now looks like a pretty good fixture. Or if you could bench Thiago, then have him ready for 37, maybe sell him for 38. That also works as well. But again, like a lot of the questions at the moment, it's a matter of free transfers. Do you have the move to go Thiago to Welbeck to get Welbeck for Wolves at home without it massively impacting the rest of your team? If yes, I'd probably make the move. Because if you get stuck with Welbeck, it's not really a problem. Leeds away in 37, Man United at home in 36. And Wolves, Leeds and Man United are all teams that don't really have anything to play for right now. Again, I don't think Man United are going to massively rotate. Carrick's playing for his job. Leeds don't strike me as a team that are just going to give up either. But on paper, Wolves, Leeds, Man United, not really anything to play for anymore. Brighton are trying to get into Europe. There's a week between games. Welbeck will start all 3 of these. He may well be on penalties as well, although Pascal Gross's record is better. And I'm a Gross owner, so I'm hoping that he takes them instead. But Welbeck might be on penalties. His goal threat is decent. He's playing in a good team. 3 fixtures are good. You got the move, I would get him. Or you could look at someone like Gyokeres if you got more money. West Ham away, Burnley at home. Havertz was in the squad for Arsenal in the last Champions League game. So maybe that impacts his minutes a little bit. But Gyokeres has done okay recently. And Havertz not getting any minutes tells me that his fitness wasn't quite there for that match. In which case, Gyokeres probably starts West Ham and he probably starts Burnley. So if you got more money, I'd rather have Gyokeres and Welbeck for the next 2 than Thiago. But again, I just don't see... Thiago's been so good this year, and that Palace at home fixture in 37 is great. He's just not a must-sell. I wouldn't be doing it for a hit. But if you've got the spare transfer, why not move on for a forward that's got better fixtures? So I'm just going to run through some final thoughts for my own team going into tomorrow's deadline. I got 1.3 million in the bank and 2 free transfers to spend. And I think on paper, the team looks okay this week. So I got Verbruggen and Van Heck double up against Wolves at home, Gabriel against West Ham away, and Nico O'Reilly making up the back 3 with his double game week. Midfield is Palmer, Semenyo, Fernandes, Tavernier and Gross. Then up front, Calvert-Lewin and then Haaland captain for the double. On the bench, Darlow, João Pedro, Hill, and Struijk. I don't think I would play Hill over any of these players. Last week, obviously, I wish I'd done Hill over Tavernier, but now it's an away game. I'm pretty happy about playing the attacker. João Pedro versus Tavernier, maybe that's a bit closer than I first thought, but I'd still probably rather play the better fixture on paper. Calvert-Lewin's got penalties, so he's ahead for me. So, yeah, I'm okay with benching João Pedro. I also don't hate João Pedro or Chelsea players in particular for the final 2 games. Like Spurs at home in 37, Sunderland away in 38. Now, the Spurs game is 3 days after the FA Cup final, but with Villa through to the Europa League final, 6th spot is open for Champions League. And Chelsea, even though I'm not convinced they'll make it, it's mathematically possible for them to still get in Champions League, and they will obviously want to do that. So I think the minutes for Chelsea players, as long as they don't pick up an injury in the FA Cup game, will probably still be quite good for 37. So I don't hate benching João Pedro this week than playing the next 2 weeks. I'm fairly sure I'm going to do Palmer to Saka. It seems like a more than reasonable move. Better fixture, West Ham away. Next week it's Burnley at home. The reason I'm not as sure as everyone else about it is I think Palmer's going to play 90 minutes against Liverpool, and I think he's going to keep penalties. Whereas I think Saka might get 70 or 75 against West Ham and probably isn't on penalties because of Gyokeres. Now, to be fair, Palmer's not looked great, and Chelsea are in a pretty bad spot right now. And Arsenal have looked good, And a big part of that is Saka's back. And Arteta said he's got no Achilles pain and stuff like that. So I probably would rather have Saka than Palmer this week. But I don't think there's a huge gap between the two necessarily because of penalties and minutes for Palmer. Either way, I'd rather have Saka for 37. But the problem is when I say that, that's the same thing as what I said with Senesi and Gabriel. I said I could roll. I said, yes, I would want Gabriel back definitely for 37, but Senesi was fine for 35. And look how wrong that went. This is the problem now. I'm second guessing everything. Anyway, stop rambling. Palmer to Saka is probably going to happen. Second free transfer. Right now, I'm leaning towards rolling. There's something telling me don't do Semenyo to Cherki. Just keep hold of Semenyo and just hope the minutes are good for both of those games. And of course, it's possible Semenyo can outscore Cherki, right? Even though Cherki's the better option, it's not impossible that Semenyo does as well, if not better. So I'm just thinking, is that transfer better used in future game weeks? Like, what if the title race is open by game week 38? I'm stuck there with 3 City, potentially 3 Arsenal. I could do with an extra free transfer to deal with that. The other option is to bring in Lacroix just to bench Tavernier. I'm just not feeling it. I do think Lacroix will probably start both games, but I also think Everton and City probably score. Now, Lacroix can score himself. He can get DEFCONs and stuff like that. But I feel like for my team, he's basically useless to me after game week 36. So right now, Palmer to Saka and roll is what I'm thinking. And will that transfer just be more useful to me in 37 and 38? And right now, I'm not actually sure what that move is for. Like, there's part of me thinking 38 is just going to be chaos anyway. Just don't worry about it too much. Grab the points now. Like, even moves like Calvert-Lewin to Welbeck or Tavernier to Ndiaye or Szoboszlai have crossed my mind for this game week, rather than going for Lacroix or Semenyo to Cherki. Just something a little bit different. But I think I'd rather just roll and be in a better position for 37 and 38 because apart from not having many Palace, I think this team looks fine. I'm not massively concerned about it. So as it stands, and it's 2:56 p.m. UK time on Friday, I'm probably going to do Palmer to Saka and roll my other move. By the deadline tomorrow, that might be different. Let's wait and see. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you tomorrow for the deadline stream starting at 9 a.m. UK time.